Hey, thanks for dropping by lately. We see you in the chat.
Yeah.
A lot of people reading your stuff on A to Z. A lot of people reading it. Ryan, thanks for joining. I'd love to hear where you think this all stands and how you think Notre Dame fans should or are processing everything going on.
No, man, no, I appreciate you for letting me come on for a couple minutes. I don't do live shows anymore, so I kind of missed it, to be honest with you. So I'm excited to talk it, and obviously I've been in the chat a few times, like you said. John, I mean, it's such a weird balance right now for me with the quarterback debate because there are, and I think one of the callers just said it, there are so many other players and positions that are still not fully settled that I do want to have the conversations deeper on, but unfortunately, it's all people want to talk about. And I fully understand it, right? I mean, a quarterback is the most important position, not just in football and all the sports. So, like, I understand that people want to talk about it. And I also think that this is semi-media created. And I might be a part of this, to be honest. You know, like, I mean, I'm part of the media. So, like, I have probably created some parts of this narrative. But the perception of going into this quarterback battle, the day the season ended and people, you know, were moving forward to the 2025 season was, you have CJ, you have Steve Angeli, you have Kenny Minchey. How do those guys balance out against one another? Well, even when Steve was still a part of the conversation, most people thought that it was CJ's job to lose, right? Because of the perception of who he is, what he was as a recruit, what we've seen in the blue and gold games the last 2 years, like all those things together have created the narrative that this was CJ by a landslide. And in reality, it hasn't been CJ by a landslide. And you have to give part of the credit to Kenny Minchey, who, and I know people are saying, like, you want someone to show that they're the guy. Well, guys, this wouldn't really be a conversation if Kenny didn't improve this offseason, right? Like, he has improved. This is a legitimate battle. And I kind of wrote it the other day. The longer this thing lasts, I do think that Kenny has a legitimate chance to win. And I am moving over to that bandwagon of, the further we get, I do think that this is a possibility that it is Kenny, and it's strengthening by the day is the best way for me to put it. Not necessarily saying that he's won it. I'm not saying that people behind the scenes have told him he's the guy and they're just waiting on the date to announce it. But I think that bandwagon of Kenny is starting to strengthen a lot. And I know Mike has been on that. Goolsby has been talking about that a lot. And, you know, I've talked to Mike about it. And I think that we see a lot of similar parallels with just kind of how this thing is going. So it could end up being CJ in the end. And if it is, fine. I mean, why do we want Notre Dame to recruit the quarterback position better previously? I mean, we went through a few years where it was like Brendan Clark and Drew Pine, and like it wasn't good, right? Like, why did you want Kenny, then CJ, then Noah, then Teddy Gerard? Like, why do you want all these guys to come in? It's because you want the quarterback battles that are going to ensue because that you have that much talent in here. So I think just taking a breath for a second, sitting back, enjoying this for what it is. You have two talented quarterbacks that are duking it out, and I think no matter who ends up winning it, I think that you'll be in a good spot. It might look semi-different depending on who does win it, but I do think Kenny is very, like, I do think this is a neck-and-neck thing, and I do think that Kenny has a legitimate chance to win, opposed to, I think, what a lot of narratives have been out there that this has just been CJ all along.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting when I look at like the 1 foot down poll that had 76% of respondents that were saying Carr should be the starter. They want him to be the starter. That's, you know, 3/4 of the people, without either one playing in a real game yet and seeing what that's like. Where do you think that comes from? Meaning, is that all the CJ Carr last name, Michigan lore, the recruiting buildup and what a big deal it was when he committed, versus Kenny was looked at as, go get him from Narduzzi to give him something else to complain about at Pitt. And we whiffed on the 5-star Dante Moore that was a silent commit for all those months we were hearing about whatever. Like, I think a lot of this started with the perception of how they both got to Notre Dame. And it's been uneven ever since, just from that being in people's minds. One was like a throw in at the end because you whiffed on the big target. And the other guy was Michigan royalty with the name and everything else. Is that where the imbalance is? Because I haven't seen enough from either guy to know on the field where they're at. Is that it?
No, I mean, yeah. I mean, it's definitely part of it for sure. I think especially from obviously just the general fan base, because, again, like, they don't have media doesn't barely get any access to these guys. And obviously the general public, it's even less, right? So, like, you are relying just based upon the information that you have. And the information you have is stars, offer lists, and 5 passes between the two, right? And CJ hasn't even thrown a pass in his college career yet. So you just don't have a sample size to really look at it and say, I have a firm understanding of who's who, who's what, other than 2 blue gold games. And like blue gold games are important. Like it gives you some more data to that collection. But I mean, Nate Montana once upon a time was a star of the blue and gold games. Like it doesn't fully matter. Like these scrimmages don't really matter. The practices in the spring is what actually matters. So I think the perception is absolutely there, right? Like CJ is, I always joke about it like he's the golden child in a lot of Notre Dame fan base. And part of it is very deserved. Like he's talented, right? Like he didn't have all those offers and he wasn't rated the way he was just because his last name was Carl. Like CJ is talented. There's no doubt about it. And when they got him, you're like, oh man, you stuck it to Michigan. Lloyd Carr's grandson. You see Lloyd with like, what do you wear? A Notre Dame hat or a Notre Dame shirt? I can't remember, right? But like that's cool. That's awesome. Like that's a really cool story.
Yeah.
And you're like, wow, a Carr is going to lead Notre Dame back to the promised land. That is fun. On Kenny's side, you mentioned it. Like he was a Pitt commit with Coach Narduzzi, and you had to flip him late. But I would say that the one thing that people do need to like realize, on Kenny, is one, after the Dante Moore fiasco happened, there was a very small amount of quarterbacks that they turned to that were guys that they wanted. Kenny Minchie was one of them. Aiden Childs, who's now at Michigan State, there was at Oregon State, was another. There were a couple quarterbacks that they liked, that they turned to quickly. So it wasn't like Kenny was like
an Elite 11 guy, wasn't he? He was competing in the Elite 11. Like he had his own like credibility there, but it wasn't the big shiny Dante Moore because that narrative was so heavy for so long with Freeman landing that guy and all that. Like it wasn't that, and it changed people's eye level, and I think set the tone. All right, Ryan, let me ask you this. Let's play this out a little bit down the road, okay? Play this out.
Okay.
Let's roll. Let's say the narrative right now feels a little Kenny leaning from the reporting and the vibe everybody's getting. Let's say that plays out and it ends up being Kenny. What sort of leeway does Kenny have early in the year with these 2 big games? That is where my mind goes next is, say he wins it. How much patience is there in the Miami game? If things go a little sideways, do you go to Carr or do you have an obligation to say, we picked this guy, we believe in him, and we need to let him work through things? What do you think that patience level's like? Because I could see that complicating things or being the right move, and I don't know how to view that. How do you think that would play out with the leash there, the leeway?
I would hate if there's a really small leash on it. I know some people are going to say your 2 biggest games are, back to back to start the year, right? Like you need to beat Miami, you need to beat Texas A&M, you need to at least split. But like if you won 2, that's obviously you're putting yourself in a great situation for the rest of the year. But you have been raging in this quarterback competition for months and months and months, and eventually you name a starter. I don't think it's right after all that hard work and to have this immediate leash, like. Because I think that some people, and correct me if I'm wrong, John, like I think your question's coming from, if he's struggling against Miami, like let's say he has a bad half of football, do you come out the second half and say, hey, maybe we need to change something up here? Because and maybe it works, right? Like we've seen that in Notre Dame before where it's like a change up to completely alter a football game. But I do think the other side of it is we are talking about 2 very inexperienced quarterbacks who do have confidence, right? And do need confidence. And the minute that you make that move, you are creating a whole other just battle of a conversation and a controversy that will it be fixed immediately? Like, I mean, maybe I mean, look, there's different worlds that this happens, but like maybe if that happens and CJ becomes the guy and you never look back and he just ascends to being that starter, like we've also seen that storyline. But there is also the other storyline where you kind of fracture a locker room, because I think that's one thing that we don't talk about enough. And again, we're not privy to this information enough of, is that right or wrong, just or unjust, whatever, there is going to be some people on the Notre Dame team side, right? The players. Let's talk about the coaches, what the coaches think, and the media think, and what the fans think, and all that stuff is very important. But there's also players involved here, and right or wrong, and people can pretend like this isn't a thing if they want, but there are going to be some players that back one player more. There are going to be other players in the locker room that back the other player more.
Yeah.
And I don't know which, like I will say this. I think that there are definitely some people in that building that are very pro Kenny Minchie, right? Like I think that there is a lot of belief in that young man, but I also think it's the same with CJ Carr. I think it is. But when that conversation happens of making a switch or having a short leash, you need to be mindful of your locker room, because if you make the wrong decision, because there's also the other world that, hey, if you pull Kenny Minchey because he's struggling a little bit, there's a possibility that CJ Carr does worse. I mean, like that also possibly exists, right?
Yeah.
And then if that controversy continues, what's the next step, and how do you recapture the locker room as far as being a cohesive unit? Like that is the battle that you have to fight at that point.
Yeah, it's just such a complicated dynamic. And it's like, I'm with you where there's so many other things you would like to focus on and write articles and do videos about, but it's like, this is just the big elephant in the room and it gets so much attention. It's like unavoidable. Like it's almost unavoidable. So I don't know how this is going to go. Let me ask you this. You're pretty good with looking at film and doing that kind of stuff. Do you believe there would be a big difference in the offensive approach with Geno and Denbrock setting up the offense the first two games, depending on which player it is? Or will it be little tweaks of things that one's comfortable with or the other, and you could throw them in wrinkles or little options there? Like, how different do you think the offensive strategy would be one guy to the other?
I mean, obviously the system's not changing at all, right? So like you're not curtailing a full system to one player versus the other. I think they are both they're similar enough as pure passers to be able to operate the same type of system, right? And the same strategy and the same route combinations. Like it's not going to change that a ton. In a Kenny Minchey offense, would you be more willing to run a little zone read or power read off of things, or even a little bit more RPO extension off of things at times with the running element? It's possible, but you have that in your arsenal already, right? Like, but the key is, I think, to answer it is hopefully as directly as I can, John, is like I don't think it changes a lot. Like we're not talking about like Riley Leonard versus Peyton Manning here, right? Yeah. Like it's not that much of a difference. Maybe on 3rd and 1, you might figure like, hey, maybe a quarterback power to make sure you get that 1 yard, especially with Keegan Young out now. Like maybe that's the thing that you go. But like I don't think it changes the strategy much. Maybe it changes the emphasis part of the offense. Like maybe one quarterback has a more ability to push the ball down the field comparatively to the other. I don't think that there's a huge separation there either. So I think other than maybe just a situational football type of thing on like 3rd and short, 4th and short, or maybe a little bit more RPO game. Other than that, I don't think there's a ton of differences, honestly, in these two. That
makes perfect sense. And then, Ryan, before I let you go, I want to give you this opportunity. Yeah. I'm sure you're going to appreciate it. I'm sure you are. Okay. I would like to give you the opportunity to go over anything in your mind that has struck you as interesting or should be more of a narrative this camp that hasn't gotten the attention you think it should because of all the quarterback stuff going on. What is a narrative you think is underrated here that should get more run and it isn't right now?
Yeah, if I can get two real quick, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I think that one is, I think it's Jalen Sneed is one. I posted about this the other day, and I did a video about it. Jalen Sneed has been one of these guys where, and obviously everyone knows, 5-star 2021 recruiting class, state of South Carolina, incredibly talented football player. But we've kind of been waiting for that. We've been kind of waiting for everything to really click with him, right? Like he's a great athlete. He's got length. He can play on this first level. He can rush off the edge. He can do a lot of different things. And he's played Rover. He's played Will. Like he's done a lot of different things in his Notre Dame career. But it never really has fully, tangibly gone from talent to full-time production. Like he's been productive in spurts, in situational roles. But this offseason, there's something different about him this offseason. Like, and one part is the two biggest things that I'd want to see him improve, because again, he's talented, is one, the weight, right? Like, because he's played Rover a lot earlier in his career, especially. He's, been between 215 to 220 throughout most of his career. He's over 230 plus pounds, and Coach Bullis talked about there in his press conference, and he's holding the weight, and it hasn't sacrificed athleticism. So I think that's one big thing. Now, he can play a little bit more between the tackles, get off the blocks more efficiently, that type of thing. But then I'm telling you, and this is a little bit of a sicko talk here, but I listened to the media availability the other day with Snead over the weekend and Drake and all those guys. And in the past, I could tell that Jalen, not that he's not an engaging person, but he didn't really come off as this guy that was like overly confident when he talked and overly open to media and just kind of, next steps. Like he just didn't. I would implore anybody, like, go back and listen to just Jalen Sneed in the past, and it's not bad. Like I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but like he was very just kind of closed off and not, didn't sound process oriented and like all those types of things. He sounded like a different cat to me this past weekend. Like I was like, he sounds like mentally it's come along and he's comfortable. His body is now carrying that weight and that physical development has come.
Yeah.
I have been a big prove it to me, Jalen, right? Like prove it to me. You have Kingston, obviously. You have Jaden Osbury. You have a bunch of other guys that can play that will position next to Drake Bowen. You can mix and match a little bit. But I'm buying into the Jalen Sneed hype, man. I really am. I think that this is actually the breakout year. I've been kind of like in show me mode with Sneed.
Yeah.
But I do think that he has an opportunity to do that. And the only other guy, and I won't go long-winded on this one, is I think Jason Onye is going to have a big year. Like I do. There's been a lot of conversation about, Jared Dawson, Donovan Heinisch, Gabriel Rubio. I think the floor of that position is higher. The ceiling might not be quite there because you don't know if you have a Riley Mills or Howard Cross when Howard Cross is healthy. But you do know that you have more capable bodies inside, so the floor has risen in that room. But if there's one guy that takes that monumental step, I think it's going to be Onye because he's now over 300 pounds. He has the ability to play nose and three technique. I really think that he's going to surprise a lot of folks this year.
Oh, man, that's good stuff. I know Goolsby's with you with the Sneed. He's on his radar like a top guy he's looking at for a breakout prove-it year. Like, got to have it. If it's going to happen at a big level, it's going to be this year type thing. One more thing, if you have time for it. What are your feelings on the Notre Dame offensive line? That is one of the biggest things that's going to be able to help whoever the quarterback is ease into this season in a hostile environment. What is your belief in the O-line and the way that's shaping up?
I think it'll be an improved group based on what it was last year. Because you have 4 or 5 guys coming back that were projected to be starters before the fall started, and obviously with the Jagasaw injury, you were able to, I think, with it being early enough, you were able to get some more mental reps for Sullivan Absher even before the fall started. And by everyone that has been talking about him, like Sullivan has been pretty good. I know he missed 1 day of practice. I don't know. I don't think it was a serious thing, obviously, because he was back at practice at the very next opportunity. But I think Sullivan is capable and he will at least be a solid player at right guard. But I do think that we're hearing now more and more that Gerby Lambert is starting to come on a little bit. Like, right guard will at least be a solid to good group. Will be as good as what Jagasaw could have been. Probably not at least early on in the season until Jags gets back. But I think that position is going to be good enough with the ascension of Anthony Nat, with hopefully a full season of health from Ashton Craig, with Billy Schroff taking a step forward, with Neil Wagner being at least solid to good. I think all that together, I think the offensive line is going to be better than it was last year. Man,
there's just so much to see and so many layers to all this. And then you combine it with the early schedule, and it's just the most Notre Dame-y thing you could imagine as far as narrative and perception. Like, with all of these questions combined with that schedule and the front half, this is going to be really interesting. Ryan, thanks a lot for joining us. Tell everybody where they can find your material. I want to make sure that everybody can find it.
Yeah, no, A to Z Sports. If you obviously Notre Dame fans on the channel, but if you want to read about other schools as you're getting ready for matchups and playoffs and all that type of stuff, we have it all over there, NFL-centric stuff as well. But if you just want to follow me at Rising Draft on Twitter, I post all the links to the content, videos, all that type of stuff. But appreciate you for having me on, man.
Hey, I'll tell you this, Ryan. You mentioned you don't do live streams. Every once in a while you get the itch for it. This is the place for that. If you want to hop in, I'll send you a link sometime. If you gotta get that itch in you, this is the place to be. I'll shoot you a link. You could hop on, man.
All right, yeah, that sounds good, man. As long as the daughters are in school and all that type of stuff, I'll be sure to hit you up. That sounds great.
I appreciate it. Hey, have a really good day. Thanks for being around. Thanks for the content today. Have a good one, man. Don't forget to check out the merchandise. The link is in the description. You can browse and carouse all the different Always Irish gear. Make sure you head over there and get something for the next tailgate. Thanks for being here.